Thank you very much. Let's begin by first welcoming our High Commissioner, Sri Vikram Doraiswamy, who will now address us with his welcome remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister, Professor Kramer, friends from LSE, Mr. N.K. Singh, Lord Stern, Lord Gadia, friends from my colleague, High Commissioner of, my counterpart colleague, I should say, the High Commissioner of the UK in New Delhi, Lindy Cameron. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here today at this very special occasion in which we partner the London School of Economics in hosting our Finance Minister to talk to us about opportunities and challenges for India's quest to become a developed nation by 2047, our government's flagship agenda. This is our Finance Minister's first visit in her current capacity, but also her first visit in some, I was reminding her, 9 years nearly. So it is, I dare say, long overdue, and we are delighted to welcome you here, Madam Minister. We're also delighted that with you we have the Finance Secretary, Ajay Seth, our senior colleague in government, Mr. Rajaraman, who chairs the GIFT City, India's initiative to create our own financial center currently in Gujarat, first of its kind, an opportunity to coordinate and open up markets and investment in a new framework for India. GIFT City has been one of our signature offerings in recent times. The chairman was here just a fortnight ago in offering GIFT City as an opening for universities and businesses from the UK to look at India. In this conversation, we will have the opportunity to have Professor Kramer welcome us and also talk a bit about his recent visit to India and the work that the LSE does with India through the India Observatory, which has been in place now for a decade, and in the extraordinary relationship that we have had with the LSE, no less and most significantly in the fact that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the founding framer of the Indian Constitution, did his PhD there, and it is indeed his birth anniversary this coming Monday. So we couldn't have a more opportune time for this event to celebrate the partnership between India and the UK with our Finance Minister in town in the context of our partnership with the LSE. So without further ado, may I invite Mr. Professor, hopefully Lord too soon, Larry Kramer, to address us. Thank you.
Thank you, High Commissioner, and welcome, Finance Minister, and everybody who was here. It's really an honor and a privilege to have the chance to speak to you at all and to be here for this event. As mentioned, I actually just recently got back from India. It was my first trip there in my role at LSE, and it was a really remarkable trip in many different ways. What struck me overwhelmingly, which I talked about a lot, I did a bunch of interviews while I was there, and what was overwhelming was the kind of energy and optimism and pace of change that you could see. I had last been in India before COVID, so it had been a few years, and the amount of change that had taken place for the positive was incredibly striking. And as I say, everybody I met, there was a kind of energy and enthusiasm that, quite frankly, you do not hear in my former home country, and I won't say anything about my current one. No, I didn't mean that negatively. I did not. But there's lessons to be learned from what's happening in India, I think, for all of us. Particularly given what's happening in the world now, one of the things that we talked about quite a bit with all of the people we met there was the opportunity the nation has to really assert a role in world leadership and to fill a gap that has obviously emerged right now. And for me, speaking on behalf of LSE, that was a particularly important thing to hear because we believe LSE actually has a role to play in this. As mentioned, we are a global school. We have long connections to India. They actually stretch back to the very founding of the school. I think the first PhD was someone from India. The first department was funded by a gift from the Tata Trust. It is currently our social policy department. And all through the years, a great many students, including Ambedkar, have come through the school. It is still today one of our largest cohorts of students. More importantly, it's one of our best cohorts of students. The students are very active, they're engaged, they mix with the students from around, they take away, I think, the best of LSE and they bring some of the best of India to us. It is a cohort we are eager to grow and expand, both in terms of getting students and on the research front. We think there are a great many opportunities for research partnerships. In addition to the observatory, while I was in India, we announced the launch of the LSE Research and Education Foundation, which we've now set up in the country to be a platform from which we will be able to do a great many more things. So the trip really left me incredibly hopeful, both about India, about LSE's role in its continued growth, and about its place in the world. I was privileged while I was there to actually meet with the finance minister, who explained to me some of India's priorities, which, as I say, line up really well with what I believe are our school's strengths. And it was an honor to meet with you there. And I will say we're just really pleased that on a busy trip where we know you have a lot of things to do, you have chosen to take some time out to do this event with us, to talk with NK and Nick, and to give everybody a chance to hear from you. So thank you so much, and it's wonderful to be here.
Thank you very much, Professor Kramer. May I now respectfully invite the Honourable Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs to deliver her address. Madam.
Good morning. What an honor and privilege it is for me to be here and to address this august gathering. Professor Larry Kramer, Vice Chancellor of LSE, Lord Stern, and Shri N.K. Singh, High Commissioner Vikram Doraiswamy, and also High Commissioner in India from the UK, dignitaries and students. It's a great privilege indeed and a pleasure to be in London School of Economics, although we are hosting it in India House today, which has produced generations of world-class scholarship and erudition. Let me express my gratitude for this opportunity to speak on India's development prospects on this platform. Today, India stands at a defining moment in its economic trajectory. Over the past decade, we have surged ahead, climbing from being the 10th largest economy to the 5th largest in just 5 years. This transformation is a testament to our prudent macroeconomic policies, steadfast reforms, and the resilience of our people. As we aspire to become a Vikasit Bharat by 2047, that is, a developed nation by the centenary of our independence. The path ahead demands innovation, sustained investment, continued reforms, and a firm commitment to inclusive growth. Our growth trajectory remains strong, underpinned by sound macroeconomic fundamentals and structural reforms implemented over the last decade. However, we recognize that the global landscape is changing today, and rapidly at that. The globalization era, which saw the developing economies capitalize on their low-cost advantages to drive growth, has given way to localization. Today, the realignment of supply chains, evolving trade dynamics, and geopolitical fragmentation collectively reinforce the importance of economic security and self-reliance. Recognizing the shifts underway, the Indian government's budgets, and particularly the budget of 25-26, has outlined a clear roadmap focusing on key priorities, including agricultural productivity, rural development, inclusive growth, manufacturing, MSME support, employment generation, innovation, energy security, and export promotion. This set of priorities builds upon the foundation laid in previous years, ensuring that India remains resilient in the face of external challenges while leveraging domestic economic strength. India's greatest strength lies in its vast and diverse pool of human capital. With 26% of our population in 10 to 24 age group and a median age at just 28 years, we have the potential to fuel unprecedented economic growth. While the demographic profile is highly favorable, the challenge lies in addressing the skilling and employment needs of such a large population to make them future ready. This challenge assumes greater dimensions in the face of rapidly changing technological demands, particularly on our workforce, particularly again with the increasing penetration of artificial intelligence. The hardening of attitudes to immigration and demands for wage parity with domestic labor impart an additional dimension to India's employment imprint. The government is doing its best to address this challenge. Initiatives such as the Skill India, Startup India, and the National Education Policy 2020, that is, form the foundation for nurturing a skilled and innovative workforce. India's AI mission has generated global optimism, and India's presence on the World AI platform has become significant. The expansion of Atal Tinkering Labs in schools will nurture a spirit of innovation among students, while the National Centers of Excellence for Skilling, announced in the Union Budget, will provide industry-relevant training to the youth. Other initiatives like internships for 1 crore youth over 5 years, employment-linked incentive schemes, and wage support for freshers, among others, reflect our commitment to securing gainful employment for the people of India. Labor reforms, measures to enhance the ease of doing business, infrastructure development are creating an environment conducive to entrepreneurship and job creation. The realization of the ambition for Vikasit Bharat 2047 remains closely linked to global economic developments, as you would understand. Over the last 2.5 decades, globalization has presented India with unprecedented opportunities in trade, in investment, and also in technical advancement. As a trusted investment destination, India has attracted cumulative gross FDI, that is the foreign direct investment inflows, exceeding $1 trillion since 2000. Investor-friendly policies, a vibrant innovation ecosystem, and improving global competitiveness continue to attract capital and technology into our country. Given its global interconnectedness, the Indian economy is not isolated from the global risks and challenges arising due to geopolitical tensions, trade disruptions, and financial market volatility. The IMF reports a 3-fold increase in new trade restrictions since 2019, and the UNCTAD World's Investment Report 2024 highlights a 2% decline in global FDI in 2023. Navigating these headwinds requires strategic policy interventions with a strong emphasis on strengthening domestic capabilities and capacities. In this phase of a rapidly evolving global policy landscape, with a number of imponderables, the government's conviction is that the most effective path to building economic resilience is to foster domestic efficiencies and competitiveness. The last 2 union budgets have laid out a multi-sectoral policy as an agenda to drive sustained growth. Key development measures focus on enhancing agricultural productivity, strengthening manufacturing capabilities, and providing robust support for small and medium enterprises. And these measures are capable of driving investment, productivity, and economic growth. Infrastructure development has been a cornerstone of our policy agenda over the past decade. The Union government's capital expenditure has been raised by 4.3 times from 2017-18 to 2025-26 budget. This significant increase has led to a qualitative transformation in India's physical infrastructure. Since 2014, the national highway network has expanded by about 65%. The number of operational airports has more than doubled, and maritime and rail connectivity has vastly improved. The Prime Minister's Gati Shakti National Master Plan is strengthening multimodal connectivity, streamlining trade, and reducing logistics cost. As a result, India's ranking in the World Bank's Logistics Performance Index has risen from 54 in 2014 to 38 in 2023. We earnestly hope that private investment, both in partnership with the public sector and on its own, picks pace gradually. Alongside physical infrastructure, the development of public digital infrastructure has been transformative. Over the last decade, the initiatives such as UPI, Aadhaar, and the JAM Trinity have revolutionized financial inclusion, formalized the economy, and enhanced efficiency across sectors. The digital revolution also presents challenges such as cybersecurity threats, digital literacy gaps, and unequal access to technology. The government is addressing these concerns through initiatives like Digital Saksharata Abhiyan for digital literacy and data protection laws for privacy and security, and the latest announcement, that is BharatNet for rural connectivity. Continued investments and inclusive policies will enable India to leverage digital infrastructure for sustained economic development. Climate change is one of the defining challenges of our time. Our pledge is to achieve net zero emissions by 2070, underscores our resolve to balance economic growth with environmental sustainability. However, the path to a green transition demands significant investments, policy innovation, and international cooperation. Our ambitious renewable energy goals depend on overcoming hurdles like energy storage costs, grid stability, and dependencies on critical minerals. We can overcome these obstacles by encouraging innovation in battery technology and supporting domestic manufacturing of renewable energy components. The government is actively promoting green finance, sustainable urban development, and climate resilient infrastructure. The train of climate change may have left the station already, and hence adapting to its effects, such as heat waves and flooding, commands a higher priority. Further, resources have trade-offs as well, and the industrial revolution and the successful development of today's advanced nations were based on abundant, cheap energy. Therefore, our approach to energy diversification and reducing fossil fuel dependence has to be pragmatic, recognizing their fiscal growth and security implications. As India embarks on transformative reforms to achieve Viksit Bharat, strengthening governance structures and state capacity is non-negotiable. One of the most notable advancements has been the digitization of public services. with initiatives like the direct benefit transfer, streamlining subsidies, reducing leakages, and ensuring targeted welfare delivery. The e-delivery of government services has also expanded across sectors, particularly finance, local government utilities, and social welfare schemes. To build a future and a future-ready bureaucracy, programs like Mission Karma Yogi are equipping civil servants with data-driven decision-making skills and encouraging interdepartmental collaboration. Going forward, partnerships with civil society, industry, and academia are crucial to ensuring policies remain citizen-centric and innovative. In conclusion, the road ahead is what I would like to spend the next few minutes on. As we march towards Vikasit Bharat 2047, our approach must be inclusive, sustainable, and innovation-driven, transforming challenges into opportunities for growth. The coming decades will be shaped by our ability to harness human capital, build world-class infrastructure, navigate global uncertainties, and adopt cutting-edge technologies. Our government remains committed to continued reforms, maintaining macroeconomic stability, and ensuring that growth benefits are in every section of the society. Vikasit Bharat is not just a policy goal, it is a national mission. With determination and collective effort, we will transform India into a global powerhouse and a beacon of prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for that illuminating address on the opportunities and the challenges towards becoming Viksit Bharat by 2047. You've given us much to reflect on as we navigate the critical way forward. And building on that perspective, it's now my pleasure and privilege to invite Lord Nicholas Stern to share his reflections and remarks on this topic. The floor is yours, sir.
Let's stay here. Okay. Thank you, Finance Minister, for being with us today. It's an enormous honor. I know that you've got so much to do with other finance ministries, with industry, and it's really very good of you to spend some time reflecting with a bunch of academics on the future of India. I think it was thoughtful, strategic, and inspiring, the plans that you laid out and your description of the foundations that have been built. As you know, I've been coming to India now for more than 50 years, at least once or twice a year throughout that time, and living there for a couple of quite long periods. I like to think of it as another home. And the change in that time has been quite remarkable. And I've seen it through the eyes of one particular village in UP, but also from the point of view of the economy as a whole. And the basic entrepreneurship of the Indian people is quite remarkable. From in the village of Palanpur, people who changed from just farming to farming and maintaining motorcycles and tractors, people who bought an oil crusher which serves much of the village and other villages, people who buy solar panels and charge up other people's mobile phones. That's entrepreneurship. That's entrepreneurship at the village level. And of course, just to take two houses that the LSE has good relationships with, Tata and Reliance, you've seen entrepreneurship on a huge world stage. So that entrepreneurship runs right through the Indian economy and will be, as you emphasize so clearly, an enormous driving force in the road to being a developed country by 1947. And surely the basic elements of the climate for investment, the infrastructure, and the skills of the people form, as you described, again so clearly, the basis of a clear strategy. And the dynamism of these last 10 years or so, and you've contributed so much to shaping it, surely gives us all optimism. And growth now has to be sustainable from the point of view of the environment. There's no choice. And again, India is very much engaged with that kind of issue. It involves investment, but it involves investment which is very closely integrated with infrastructure investment itself. India will multiply probably by mid-century its electricity capacity by 4 or 5 times as transportation moves to electricity, as heating and cooling move to electricity, and that electricity has to be green. And that's a key example of how the sustainable development story and the development story itself are inextricably intertwined. They're not separate. There's just one story. And again, as you emphasized, inclusion is of fundamental importance. And that comes in many ways, of course, the skills and education of the people and the great advantages brought about by digitization and the ability of people to realize opportunities in ways they couldn't before. So I think your story is absolutely inspiring and gives confidence to all of India's friends, as well as I'm sure India itself. Let me turn now to my questions, because I'm moderating the questions and you'll be asking questions very shortly after NK asks questions. But here's 2 questions which are about India's role and interactions with the world in the context of the strong India that you describe so clearly as being built and will be taken forward. The first is trade. And we've seen in these last couple of months, indeed in the last few days, how world trade will be disrupted. I'm not saying we're seeing where it's going. It's a bit early for that. We're surely seeing that it's being disruptive. And often moments of disruption are moments of opportunity. And it's the strong and the imaginative that can take those opportunities. And one thing I think is reasonably clear around trade is that there'll be less trade with the United States. That seems to be their choice. And more trade in Asia, and I hope in relations within Asia, because Asia is the most dynamic force in world growth in the coming years. But also, I hope, as a European, trade between Asia and Europe. Of course, UK, as we all know, is still very much part of Europe. So that story of how, in the process of enhancing its growth, building its economy, strengthening its growth, how India will see the redesign and the rebuilding of trade relationships, particularly in the context of most dynamic part of the world, which is Asia, but also I hope with Europe. The second is very much related to my dear friend NK. You kindly asked NK and Larry Summers to, during the very successful Indian presidency of the G20 in 2023, to lead work on the reform of the multilateral development banks. And I was privileged to be part of that group working with NK and Larry Summers. And you laid out a chart for the advancement of those multilateral development banks in terms of what we called bigger, bolder, better. Bigger in the sense of very big expansion in the finance for the kinds of investments we've just been discussing. Bolder in terms of their relationship with the private sector and ability to share risk and reduce the cost of capital. And better in the sense of being much easier to work with, being faster, more cooperative, and working better as a group. Those were landmark reports which you commissioned and led, and I'd be very interested to hear about your thoughts on the future of that in the context of the new world economy, where perhaps the World Bank might be able to move only a little slowly because of their proximity to the White House, but other multilateral development banks, AIIB and the New Development Bank and the Asia Development Bank and so on, might be able to move more quickly. So those are my 2 questions. And perhaps, NK, would you like to ask your questions, or would you like to, or should we ask the finance minister? Would you like to take my questions, or just take NK's and then put them together?
As you wish. Or should I answer this and then you'll come up? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, for questions which I think can be asked of anybody in this audience, not just a finance minister of a country. Surely, in the last few years, in fact, I would say a decade, we are seeing multilateral institutions weakening, particularly when you say institutions like WTO or institutions like the World Bank, unable to carry on with their core business with the same effectiveness as when they were conceived. You can carefully say that they are weakening. So I'm not concluding that they are weakening because of any other reason, but their effectiveness was clearly being whittled away in the last decade. As a result, during G20, when India's presidency was on, it was thought appropriate that the most decisive matter on which, or most critical matter on which we could deliberate in the G20 as a forum was on how to make the multilateral institutions a lot better. Also because India's presidency of the